Hey everyone, J7Jace here, bringing you an all-character tier list in the video game Jeanne d'Arc. I'll be going over their strengths, weaknesses, and how they will fare at all points during the game, so the early, mid, late, and post-game. My personal opinion, no one is truly that bad in the game, and each character is more tuned for a specific role like physical damage dealer tank or magic, so honestly use who you like the look of best. However, some characters are still better than others. I'll be ranking them from the best at S+ to the lowest at B. So let's get started. The main character of the game, I found Jeanne to be pretty darn strong, especially in the early and post game. She is well rounded in all of her stats, and she is the first character with an armlet, and her final armlet can have up to 5 gems, meaning she can gain more attack and defense while transformed over the course of battle. She can restore her HP to full, and this can keep her taking turns, assuming she finishes off enemies with Godspeed. In the post-game, give her Durandal, her unique one-of-a-kind goddess armor, and her holy shield, and you will have a very good party member to tackle on the post-game Coliseum. I'd still use her more as a physical attack tank character over magic attacker, but giving her a heal spell early on can prove to be very useful, and to make use of her transformations. Her only negative is that she doesn't excel at anything, her damage can be kinda weak during the midpoint of the game, and she'll be absent for a time during the main story. So for all these reasons, on top of being cute, I gotta give her A+. Next, Liane is similar to Jeanne, but she is better at magic. She's a hybrid physical and magic user, and she is decent in the early game and mid game, and she gets a little better in the post game as she does have a unique armor piece, the shard pendant, and not to mention she can also transform like Jeanne, so that is an extra plus. My only issue with her is that she isn't that fantastic at doing damage, and while her magic is pretty good early on, it just doesn't scale later into the game. Also, spoiler alert, she is not playable for the mid to late game, but she can come back as a character in the post-game after you beat the Coliseum. Because she isn't as strong physically, I gotta give her A tier. Roger, or Raji, just like Jeanne, he is another sword and armlet user. He has more physical attack than them, but he is weaker when it comes to magic, meaning he isn't that good in the early game, but I still recommend throwing him in your party, as you'll need him to be pretty strong in the final battles of the game as he's required. He isn't bad, but I hate how he is absent throughout most of the main story, and he gets his armlet towards the end of the game. He can be a decent choice in the Coliseum, especially with his armlet skills, as they can do very strong damage. Not to mention, that armor just looks so cool. For these reasons, I gotta put him in B+. Jeanne is one of 2 spear wielders. He can be strong early on, especially with his great accuracy, although he isn't the most tanky character. He doesn't have access to an armlet, and he doesn't do the most insane damage, but it's still pretty good. He's readily available for use throughout most of the game, just make sure to take advantage of his reach with his weapon, and give him some of the more unique spear abilities, like Destroy, and you'll be pretty good. Because he is never a bad choice and is readily available, I gotta put him in B+. Since I'd rather stay on topic for spear wielders, the other character who can also use this weapon is Jill. In base form, I don't think he is as good as Jeanne because he is less accurate with his regular attack, and he has slightly less attack power. He has more magic, but I still wouldn't recommend using magic on him. His main strength or trump card is that he can transform with his armlet, meaning he can hit harder, has Godspeed, and he can heal back to full health with the transformation. His unique abilities are superior versions of Take Flight, and it's a great ranged attack, meaning he can equip other skill stones to increase his stats over equipping abilities. The main negative, in my opinion, is that he does leave the party for a time, but he is never bad. A+. Now for Bertrand, he can be a pretty good choice early on as he does have the best physical attack and defense compared to the other sword users in his base form, but this just doesn't cut it later as Jeanne, Liane, and Roger can transform, and they also have better MP. To me, they're just better options. He gets placed the B tier. Now for the last sword user is our lovely and cute toad. I'm probably butchering his pronunciation. Husas. He is essentially like Leanne stat-wise, and he can also transform, but he can't equip her unique pendant in the post-game, but we have more opportunities to use them. He gets a special place at A- for this reason. Now for people that love archers, these next two characters are for you. Marcel is so awesome. He has good accuracy and pretty good attack power, but more importantly, he has range. You get him early on, and once you get abilities like Meteor Bolt and Sky Dart, he is dangerous. His only real drawback is that he isn't very tanky. He can't transform, so stay further back if possible. And I also recommend increasing his mobility and range with skill stones. Because it's easy to negate his main negative and he does great damage, Marcel gets placed S tier. Beatrix. Man, I wish her stats were more catered towards attacking, but she does have better accuracy than Marcel. Sure, she has better magic, but you shouldn't be using magic on her anyway, I feel. She also has less HP and physical attack. Still not a bad party member, and you could always use 2 archers, but Marcel is just better. For these reasons, she gets A-. And now it's time for arguably the best character in the game, gameplay-wise, Rufus. Even though he can't transform, he has less base mobility, along with magic attack and magic defense. He just gains stats in HP, physical attack, and defense so freaking well. Give him higher ranks of HP recovery, along with Helm Splitter and a mobility skill stone, and watch him absolutely tank and defeat enemies on the battlefield. The only time he isn't that good is when you first get him, but overall he's just an amazingly strong character. S+. Now Bartholomew, Beatrix's hubby, he isn't handsome, but he's just an inferior Rufus. Not a bad choice, but nowhere near as good. He gets placed in A tier. And now I really hate to rank and talk bad about this character, but it's time for Lahir.
Lahir wishes to kill something.
He is just inferior to both Rufus and Bartholomew, unfortunately, in this game. Sadly, I gotta put him in B+. Like, you can use him if you want, but the other two are just better. If you love nimble characters, Colette is for you. He can do a lot of damage with his 3 or 4 hit attacks. He has high crit rating, a wonderful evasion, and mobility. Not to mention he also joins early. He's also very useful as he has a lot of utility with things like Treasure Hunter, which reveals items on the map. His main weaknesses are that he can't take a lot of damage, and if an attack ends up landing on him, like, it's pretty much game over, so be careful, or if you're unlucky, and he can't dodge it. Because he is useful with only one real negative, he is an S tier character. The guy with the plan and the real holy man, my boy Richard. He is very good early on due to magic being much stronger early into the game, and on top of this, he can transform. He isn't that tanky, but with his armlet, he can heal back to full health and gain a stat increase. But because he doesn't have good physical attack and magic damage drastically falls off, he will mostly be healing your party in the late game. So I do recommend having at least one dedicated person to healing and reviving. For these reasons, Richard gets A tier. If you love cute mages, Claire is for you. Sadly, she can be a missable character though, and she can't transform unlike Richard, although they're pretty similar in stats. But she does have quite a bit more MP, which can be really great when it comes to healing and reviving. But because she can be missed and joins the party quite a bit later, I need to put her in B+. Last but not least, it's Rose. You have the choice between picking her or Claire, although I think Rose is the overall better option for several reasons. She is the most unique character in the game as she is the only whip user, and she can even attack diagonally, which is great. Although she is virtually very similar to Colette, in terms of playstyle and stats, she's just not as good. Because she can be missable, doesn't do as much damage as Colette, and doesn't join in the party quite as early, Rose gets placed into A tier. That's it for my list on Jeanne d'Arc. Did you enjoy it? Consider subscribing if you did. I reply back to my comments, emails, and messages, so always feel free to hit me up. Take care, and all the best to you.